Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Brian Melrose. I'm the lead faculty in the spine division, teaching both cervical and lumbar courses. Stoked to be here on Clinical Tuesday to talk about a really important subject, which is standardizing absolutely everything that we do, because it's the only way that we can get good data. Now, I do apologize for my voice. I was teaching this weekend, kind of wore it out. You don't know how much I would have killed for this type of voice in high school. It would have helped me out a ton. So now that we're kind of on topic here, standardization is a huge part of what we talk about at ICE. You have to standardize everything: active range of motion, neural tension test, everything that we do. If we are going to kind of use that for a test retest model and kind of compare before and after we do things to see if the patient moved in the right direction, the data that we're getting has to be good. And I would take that even one step further. There's no way that you could be great in the clinic if you didn't have good data. Like, it would be really hard to make good decisions if you were working off of a bad data set. So how do we make good decisions and have good outcomes? The most foundational thing that is good data. And to get good data, the number one way to do that is using our processes. When you take range of motion, when you do a neural tension test, you have to do it the exact same way every single time so that you notice if something changes, you can really attribute that towards our treatment and not just to error. Now, when I first started in my career, it wasn't easy for me to say that I was good at doing this. So I practiced for a couple of years, I'd say more or less on my own in a high volume clinic in Central Valley, California. And then when I moved out to Fort Collins, Colorado here and got the opportunity to work at Colorado Motion, which Tim Flynn owned at the time, there was a lot of other fellowship trained therapists. And I was absolutely enamored with their practice, but also wanted mentorship. I wanted them in the room with me and I wanted feedback on what I felt like I could do better. And one of the fellows that I got an opportunity to work with is a guy by the name of Terry Gebhardt. And Terry would come into the room with me, and it was probably the first time he and I met. And I think it was something for kind of range of motion with lumbar spine. And I didn't standardize foot position. And the other thing that I didn't do is I didn't ask baseline symptoms. And I remember being like, oh, shoot, like, I could probably do that. That's better. Then a couple of weeks later, Terry and I had a second patient that we did together. And guess what I forgot to do again? Standardize the feet and ask about baseline symptoms. So Terry told me a second time. And I was like, man, I totally remember us chatting about this, but it just wasn't part of my process yet. And where this really hit home was the third time. I had Terry come back in with me. It's probably 2 months down the road, and I forgot again. And I wouldn't say Terry was upset at me, but I think he was irritated with how lackadaisical I was being. And to be honest with you, I was pretty irritated too. And I said, this is the last damn time I'm going to forget to standardize foot position and standardize or ask about baseline symptoms. I was so irritated because all the data I had been collecting on these patients wasn't equal. If somebody's foot position changes when they're doing active range of motion, there's no way that accommodates for neural tension. In the same way, if you tell me that your symptoms got worse when you bent forward, but I have no clue where you started from, again, that's bad data. It's hard for me to then make good clinical decisions in terms of what to do with all of the other factors, what you like, what I'm good at, where the irritability of symptoms is. I have to calibrate all of those things, and I need to be working from a good data set. And so that's when this really hit home for me. I was like, man, this is what some of the best clinicians in the country do. They standardize it every single time that they do it, and then they get good data. Now, if we're going to extrapolate this to the clinic, I mean, you could talk about that for any test that you do, but where this tends to matter the most is with neural tension tests. It always comes down to standardizing good neural tension tests well, if you want to get good data to be a good clinician and get good results. The reason why neural tension is the thing that highlights this point so much is that the entire nervous system is connected. Whenever I set up a neural tension test, I always think about one of those cadavers. There's a lot of different, cadaver body exhibits around the country. If you ever have the opportunity to go and look at the person that is just the central and peripheral nervous system. Everything else has been dissected away. Brain, spinal cord, really long arms, really long legs. I mean, sometimes they're like 15 feet tall. That is a perfect description of how the nervous system is all completely interconnected. Now, if that's true, if I want to do straight leg raise, or if I want to do upper limb tension tests, I have to know that when I set things up, I set it up the same way every time, and I did the test in the same order. So that if I see a 2 to 3 degree difference with either one of those measures, then it was because of the treatment that I hopefully just did prior to the retest of that straight leg raise or that upper limb tension test. So it has to be completely standardized because that whole nervous system is connected. So if you're on the same page with me, I want to go real life here and talk about if we had a patient in the clinic and we were doing a test like straight leg raise. So we have my body demo come in here. Sam's going to lay down with her head on the pillow and feet out here. Perfect. That's a free Colorado sunrise for you in the background too, free of charge. All right, now, if I'm going to standardize this test and I want to get good data, I got to think about it. Every single piece of Sam's body needs to be in the same position this time as when I check it next time. So the first, probably easiest thing that gets missed in the clinic is the pillow. You guys all know what I'm talking about. You got big squishy on the table in your treatment room, and then out in the clinic, you got that pancake pillow that's this big. That's going to change the amount of cervical flexion that's available. And you're going to get different data. So I have to standardize it. If my patient can tolerate laying here without a pillow underneath their head, I'm simply just going to remove that and I'm going to make sure that the head of the table is in neutral. Now, if you have one of these holes in the table, guess what? That's also going to change cervical flexion. So I'm going to have Sam just scoot down just 2 inches so she's out of that crust. Perfect. Now, everything upstairs here with her head is standardized. I then need to move down through the rest of the body and do the same thing. So next, we'll go to hand position. If Sam does test 1 here and test 2 here, that's going to change my data. I got to catch it. I got to have a process and standardize things. So as a person who lives with OCD, I love stuff like this. Sam, take the tips of both of your middle fingers, put them right on your belly button. Boom, arms are done. Finally, I got to standardize the feet. There's a lot of cute stuff you can do here. You can do 2 pieces of tape. You can do your hand. You can put some nail polish. All of those things are doable. We just want you to have a process to standardize. But this is what I've sorted down to be the easiest thing for me to use in the clinic. Simply, it's going to be a yoga block. All I'm going to do is take this dense foam that will never change its size so that every time I do it, it's exactly the same. And I'm going to put it right in between Sam's malleoli. I'll make sure that her feet are up. Once she's here, I'll remove the yoga block and I'll let her rest. Boom. She's now standardized with the yoga block. Head standardized, arm standardized, feet standardized. I have a good baseline. Now, as I do the test, whether that's upper limb tension, or in this case, we'll show straight leg raise, I know that if I get any kind of tension on board, it's only the limb that I'm working on. It's not due to something else. So again, we'll say, Sam, stay here. No movement for me, please, as I lift your leg. If you get any of those familiar symptoms, let me know. So I'll reach through here, put on some dorsiflexion, keeping the knee extended. We'll walk things up. And in here, and let's say she did, I would always want to relieve symptoms and get the foot down. I could then take my goniometer, my phone level, whatever, and get a good measure of this hip angle. That's great. Perfect. Now I can go do my treatment, whatever that is. Exercise, mobilization, manipulation, dry needling. Treat the area, then come back for my retest. Set her up in the exact same way. Head flat, middle fingers on the belly button. I get my yoga block back, and I go here. and set things this way. And I could retest. If straight leg either improved or worsened, I would know it's because of my treatment, because I have good quality data, because I standardize things. So the yoga block can really help for downstairs here. The best part about the yoga block is you can use it for something else. So in this case, we're working on a distal kind of sensitizer with dorsiflexion. A lot of times we want to incorporate the central nervous system too to look and see if that makes a bigger difference. So if we take the yoga block and we were to pop it underneath Sam's head here, it's not like the pillow. That dense foam is going to be the same way every single time for the next couple months, couple years, forever, right? So instead of me having to mess with the head plate and making sure that our head's in the same spot, I just put the yoga block right underneath our occiput. We have now reintroduced some cervical flexion. If I were going to retake ULTT1A or retake straight leg raise, coming down here, lifting up, I now know that if that were to change, it's due to my central sensitizer, which is, again, standardized. So if I took that as my test, I could reuse this again and again. So overall, our biggest thing is get a yoga block for the clinic. These make it so easy to standardize things. Pop it between the ankles, use it as a standardized way of introducing cervical flexion. So this is a good cheat code, but if we zoom out even a step further, the big message I want you to walk away with from today is you have to standardize things. It would be absolutely impossible to get good data if you didn't standardize things. If you're working off of a bad data set, it's really hard to make good decisions in the clinic. When you have bad data and difficult decisions, it's really hard to be a good clinician and get good outcomes. So don't make it about you, make it about your process. Depend on this, get really confident setting this up so that each time you do it in the clinic, test, retest, model on the days your patient's here, in between visits, this week versus next week, when your patients are doing better, you know it's exactly because of what you're doing and not just due to error. My final thing is we got a couple great spine courses coming up for you guys in the next couple of weeks. For cervical management, I would love to hang out with you guys. Anybody in that Pacific Northwest area, we have a cervical course in Portland next weekend, March 22nd and 23rd. There's a couple seats still available for that. So if you're in that Pacific Northwest, head on to the website and join us out there in Portland. I also have the next cervical course, which is April 5th and 6th in Salt Lake City. So again, if you're out that way, we'd love to hang out with you guys and practice some cervical manipulation and management. For lumbar spine, we got Zach Morgan on his home turf in Hendersonville, Tennessee. That's this weekend. If you're around the area, it's a phenomenal course. You'll have a blast with Zach. Go ahead to the website and get one there. Miller has got the next lumbar course. That's April 12th and 13th in Highland, Michigan. Hope you guys have a great clinical Tuesday. Have a great time in the clinic and that you standardize everything that you do. Thanks, team.